Hey guys, so our next little photo project is simply just sort of taking a picture to fit into another picture. In this case, instead of doing a sort of miniature effect, we're going to see if we can't do a gigantic effect. So I'm just going to kind of show you some techniques you could use to kind of perfect this. So I found this picture on Pixabay. If you want to find this picture, I found it on Pixabay. I think it was just on the main page. Just mountains here with this sort of fog kind of happening here. We're going to do a little bit of manipulation to this, but then what we'll do is I went ahead and I took this picture here. I should have lined this up earlier, but let's take a look. Here we go. All right, so this picture right here, I'm just going to drag this in to this picture of me just kind of like sitting here looking up like a weirdo, and I'll just sort of shrink this down a little bit. The whole idea is I'm going to kind of like put myself into this scenario here and see if I can't blend myself in as best I can. So the first thing I'll do is just cut myself out. So let me just do this, and I'll just sort of speed through this. All right, so the first tool I tend to use with making selections is the magic lasso or the magnet lasso. The second tool I use is a pen, and remember the pen tool is pretty simple. You just click once, and then you click and you hold. You don't let go. You sort of drag it to make a little curve, and then what you can do is right-click on it, make selection, and then make sure you hit Add to Selection if you want to make the selection bigger, right? For instance, right here, I can just click this little piece of my hair here. You don't have to actually close the path. Make selection, add to selection, okay. And then right here, for instance, I want to subtract from the selection, so I'm going to sort of draw this little curve across my head here, and then kind of like all the way around like so, and then just right-click on this, make selection, and then subtract from selection, just so it'll like kind of stay close to my head here. Same thing here. I'll just sort of subtract this little bit out, and then you can even obviously go back through and erase this later, but I'm just going to continue to sort of clean this up. Okay, I'm not going to be too terribly worried about the sort of bottom area of the selection, just by virtue of the fact that I'm going to be messing with it. It's going to be sort of sitting in behind elements of the foreground here. Okay, so I'll just get my selection tool, and I'll just right-click on this and say Layer via Copy, and I'll just make this invisible. Going to pull this off to the side here. Now I'm going to pull the opacity down for this, and I'm just going to show you real rough. Obviously, you're going to want it to blend in better. I'm going to show you kind of real rough how we're going to place this into the background here. So for instance, I can just sort of put this maybe right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get in real close to maybe, I'll shrink it down a little bit. All right, oops. Cancel. See, hold on, shift here to make sure it doesn't warp at all, but I'll put it maybe right back there. And what I'll do is this. I'm going to kind of get in a little closer here, and I'm going to zoom in some, and I'm going to use my eraser tool just to, and I think I'll just have like just a little bit less hard, maybe like a little softer, like maybe 30% hardness or so. And I'm just going to go through, and I'm just going to kind of erase little bits to sort of push it into the background here. Now notice I'm going to see if I can't follow the line of this tree here, so I might make this a bit smaller using my little square bracket just to kind of sneak in here and sort of erase bits and pieces of the trees to make it seem as if it's just being pushed back just a little bit into the background. You want to avoid the real egregious sort of like encroachments of the foreground, of the background rather, but we can't do that. And I'll just sort of erase little bits and pieces here and there. And what I'll do here is I'm going to see if I can get like a really soft brush, kind of pull the hardness all the way down, and so like see if I can't sort of, in this case, what I'll do is I'll just sort of pull this away just to make it seem as if like the fog it's sort of like melting into the fog here, and I'll just sort of pull this back here so it looks like I'm sort of sitting into the fog, and that's where the fog kind of comes in handy. Now obviously if you use a different picture you can do a different effect here. But in this case, all right, that's about right there. And then we'll do the same thing. I'm going to get my lasso tool here, and I'm just going to see if I can't kind of go along this tree line a little bit. And just make a small selection here, but then I'm going to like really feather it out some. So we're going to select, modify, feather, and I'll feather it by about 5 pixels here. And I'll use that, and I'll just, I might even expand it. I'll just delete that right there. And so then we can kind of pull this back up to its full opacity here. We can kind of see what we're looking at. All right, that's kind of neat, right? Now, obviously, in this case, we know that you can kind of tell where I'm at. So compared to the rest of the photo, so I'm going to sort of desaturate me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and go to Image Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. So I'll bring the saturation down a little bit here. Some, and I might even bring the color balance up a little bit to make it a little bit, let's see here, image, adjustments, color balance. I might bring up the red slightly now. I'll bring up the blue a little bit here to kind of pull that in. And I think even because I'm supposed to be kind of out of focus, I'm going to go to Edit and go to my camera settings here. Filter, here we go, filter, and then camera raw filter here. And that'll bring up this little menu here, which will allow me to kind of like pull the clarity down a little bit, just slightly, and maybe even sort of pull the shadows down too. Make the shadows a little bit brighter. And so that'll, and I might even see if I can't put like a little adjustment, like a solid color over it here. So there's like a little solid color. I'm going to put like white, maybe gray or something like that. And I'll make it a clipping mask. Create clipping mask. And I might even turn it to like multiply or something. And, or even, how about screen? Overlay. And I'll pull the opacity down a good deal. Right. The whole idea is you want it to blend in as much as you possibly can, right? So it's still a little bit too sharp. I might go back to filter, camera raw filter, and see if I can't pull the clarity down some more. But there you go. So you just kind of mess with the different settings that we have on here and see if you can't kind of put, mostly though, push yourself into the background at some point, have some elements that are in the foreground of your camera, sort of obscuring the picture of you that you can kind of place in there. So that's a fun little picture that you can kind of like just take it. So start off with the background, and then take a picture that's going to fit into that background. That's the big thing. You want to take the picture to fit the background rather than just sort of roll the dice and wonder if you'll come up with something that's going to look good in the background. All right, well, very cool. Can't wait to see you guys produce.